Good morning. I want to start, every time I sit here, I want to start by acknowledging the Ohlone people, who were the original people of this area. They've actually lived in the Bay Area for over 10,000 years, which makes all of us very, very, very recent immigrants. They have been taking care of this territory, and this is unceded land. So I want to just remember for a moment, unceded means that this was not territory that was sold or given to us. It wasn't voluntarily surrendered. Sometimes when we make these land acknowledgements, they become kind of a check. But I would like you to let this one land, bearing some understanding and responsibility, and understanding the kind of vast relationship that we are in with the Ohlone people, with this land, and understand that our presence here does not arise apart from relationship and responsibility, because we're a part of this ongoing relationship and its responsibilities. And speaking of this ongoing web of connection, relationship, and responsibility, I have to say that it does not take much these days to feel a little overwhelmed by what's happening in the world. Just a few minutes on the New York Times app in the morning is enough for me to feel just like there's a tsunami of suffering that I am bearing witness. There's war, displacement, hatred, violence, political posturing, loneliness, poverty, grief, fear. And I feel heartbroken some of the time. And I don't think I'm alone, because everywhere I go, people seem to be asking this very basic question, which is, how do I deal with all of this? How can I remain open and vulnerable, not turn away, witness it, not shut down, and not become bitter or despairing? How do I stay informed and engaged without drowning? I myself had this little fantasy that I noticed from time to time, living in a place with 4 seasons. I've never lived in the snow. My particular fantasy involves a lake and a town nearby with a good used bookstore and decent coffee and no dysfunction. Everybody gets along. That's my personal little fantasy. And then I always remember that I'm going to be moving to this perfect place, and I bring with me the whole world. I can't outsource to my little perfect lake town my inner world. There isn't a magical place to go. So I think this human desire to escape is pretty common. I don't think it's just me, although my fantasy is pretty distinct. I think it's what's at play in this, one of my very favorite koan. A koan is a teaching story from the Chinese tradition. And this happens to be one of my favorites. And I think it's really helpful right now. Helping me. This is from the Shoyoroku, the Book of Serenity. And this is koan number 12. It goes like this. Oh, by the way, this is between a Zen master, Dizang. Sounds like Dijon, the mustard, but it's D-I-Z-A-E-H-A-N-G, transliterated. But Dizang, and a traveling monk monk who's coming from the south. His name is Juishan. Probably saying that wrong. I'm sorry. So Juishan had just arrived from the south. And by the way, at the time that he arrived, the south was like the epicenter for all of the great political Buddhist thinking. It was a lot of intellectual activity in the south. So lots of lofty ideas about how to take care of the practice and all beings. So now Dizang says, Dizang's out in the field planting rice. And Dizang says to Juishan, so how is Buddhism down south? How is it in the south these days? And Dizang proudly replies, there's extensive discussion. That's a rich talk about Buddhism. Dizang looks at Juishan and says, well, how does that compare to me here planting rice, making rice feed people? Juishan, I imagine, feels a little judged maybe, and maybe a little bit self-righteous and arrogant. And he's like throws his back in his master's face and says, well, what can you do about the world? And Dizang fires right back with, what do you call the world? I have always loved this koan. It's the first time I heard it. Because when I'm hurting, when I'm suffering with my own suffering and your suffering and the suffering of the world, my mind naturally wants to flee to my perfect little lake existence. I want to flee to the south. But there's lots of discussion, and maybe it would distract me from the world, right? Maybe in the south we could save the world conceptually and avoid looking. It's right here, right here. But Dizang pulls us right back to earth. He's not going to take any of that escaping to my lake town. He says, I'm here planting fields with rice. Feed. He isn't being callous or indifferent to the suffering of the world. Not at all. He's pointing out that we can drown in the abstract fantasies and ideas about what it is to be here in this world. But you can't actually feed people those ideas. You feed people rice, food. We have to deal with the flesh and blood that's right in front of us. And the Buddha began his teaching career speaking of the exact same. Very famously, the Buddha said, now this, monks, is the noble truth of suffering. Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, illness is suffering. So in his very earliest teachings, the Buddha does not look away from the world. The Buddha doesn't begin with optimism or pessimism. He just deals with honesty. And this includes suffering. This practice we have here of sitting down to meet ourselves in this wall, in the world, does not begin by denying suffering. It does not begin by putting a gloss on it either. You're not here today to get zen'd out. Mindfulness isn't designed to make you unaffected and immune. And yet I think most of us come practice because we're suffering and we really just want get away from it. We want some kind of spiritual anesthesia to just turn off that piece somehow, to numb it. Or in my case, escape to a lake town of it, where there isn't any more suffering. Where the world is still happening somewhere out there. We might imagine we could become like our wooden Buddha up there, serene, that little smile on his face, just unaffected. But I'm pretty confident that the Buddha is smiling not because he's unaffected. I don't think he was numb to the suffering of the world. And we're not trying to become wooden, unmoved. This practice makes you feel more connected, more human, not less. And the Buddha's great teaching from the very beginning is, do not turn away from what's in front of us. A few days ago, Koan Sensei, who's right here with us, I went to Alice's restaurant to sit with people who had lost their coworker, a young man named Noah, who I remember Noah. We were there for kind of a memorial for 21-year-old Noah, who died in a motorcycle. 21. Hearing that number just is like something's wrong with the universe. 21 years. So I have a son in his 20s. Anybody here in your 20s? Be young. It feels as though the natural order has been interrupted and the young are surprised. I had a brother died 45 years ago. He was in his 20s. 45 years ago, it still feels wrong. So at Noah's memorial, people came from the kitchen. They were working a shift. People came from wait service where they were working. The owners of the. And we were there to bear witness their loss. And we stood in a circle and we shared memories and fears, stories, grief. Not one person tried to deny the loss. Not one person tried to make it make sense. And thankfully, nobody said everything happens for a reason. Probably the most unskillful thing another human can say. Instead, people stood in a circle, shared the grief. And by being there together, they said, we will not face this alone. We will not make each other face this. Be together. It's a kind of courage, really, to be with things as they are, hurting. Real courage. It's present. Not fixing the situation, not solving the situation, not transcending the situation with some kind of spiritual loftiness, just showing up, face the world. So I wonder if you could think for just a moment, everyone online and here, of a time in your life where someone showed up for you when you were hurting. Someone held your hand in your own little circle of grief and was just present. Didn't try to fix you or persuade you shouldn't feel what you're feeling. Just stood by held your hand. That kind of presence is medicine. You know it. If that person in your life is still alive, maybe remember to thank them. More importantly, be that person, someone else. If we show up for other people, we show up for ourselves. We remain fully present in our own skin. And the Buddha taught this. He said, hatred is never appeased by hatred in the world. By non-hatred alone is hatred. This is important to remember in the midst of our own suffering, because sometimes our suffering can be transmitted outward if we're not careful. Our suffering can contract us, and our fear becomes aggression. Our pain becomes contraction, not connection. And loss can become blame. For long, we are then transmitting the suffering that we're trying to avoid. Transmitting suffering. So we have to be careful. Pay attention at the war that we have inside with how the world is. Does not transmit out. You have to take care of the war here first. In the human heart, in this heart, in your heart. We can't pretend it isn't there. There's no lake town that we can hide in where it won't be. So the question becomes not only how to approach and take care of our own suffering, how to make sure we don't transmit it. Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, by the way, he is responsible for bringing Koban to this country. The founder of our temple is Koban Chino Otakaro Roshi. And Shunryu Suzuki Roshi is very famous for asking a question and then answering it like a million different ways. The question is, what is the most important thing? And he would answer this multiple ways. But my favorite that has really helped me in my practice, the most important thing is to accept yourself, to stand on your own 2 feet. To stand on your own 2 feet in a world of suffering means developing this kind of seat, this inner stability. It means that you face the world, you don't deny it, but you don't get knocked down. You do not become indifferent, or hard, disengaged. You don't try to escape. You take care of yourself so you can take care of everything. A drowning person cannot save another drowning. So you're burning out on what you do. It's not compassion for yourself and the world. Making yourself miserable does not reduce suffering. When we stand on our own 2 feet, to face what's actually here, something else becomes available to us. And we really step in and are present in our lives. I call that compassion. Not any kind of artificial compassion, like sentimental compassion. It's real, kind compassion towards your own suffering. When you make space to be with how you feel in the world, compassion for everybody is pouring in an ocean. If we're willing to be with our discomfort, ourselves and the world, our own suffering, and the world suffering. We can be aware, not. We can be aware, not succumb to bitterness, transmit. We might feel overwhelmed. We're willing to be okay in the midst of our discomfort. Still okay. For some people, I think the question about suffering is, how can I fix it? In a way, too big of a question. And in another way, it's kind of egotistical and is self-important, like to fix it all. I think the real question is, what do you call the world you want to fix? Where is that world? Another way of saying that is, what is there that is mine to do? Over what do I actually have agency? I could. Am I listening? Really care. Right? Am I not making things worse in my life? Right? Can I be less reactive to what's happening while it's happening? I'm reactive. Which brings us back to presence. Bravery to be present, right in the middle of your discomfort. Thich Nhat Hanh said, the most precious gift we can give others is simply our presence. So much. And it's such a gift. And that was the offering. Noah's. In our culture, that kind of raw presence, not fixing, not really doing anything, just being with someone in your own discomfort. It's not very exciting. It's not dramatic. You can't post it on Instagram. Not see. Just try it. You're not going to put it on your resume or your CV. I'm really present for people. Presence is extremely local, really face to face. And the thing is, it's medicine. Maybe the only medicine we really. To be with suffering without turning away, our own suffering, the world's suffering is a very profound conduct action. To accompany other people, other experience grief, to remain tender in a world that giving you information that might make you feel hardened, wanting to protect yourself, to remain vulnerable is a profound. The world is burning up. What's needed is people who will carry buckets of water. It doesn't help if you throw yourself on the fire. The world is not an abstract problem out there. Yeah. Yesterday here we had a Zazenkai and had face-to-face meetings with people who wanted to talk face-to-face privately. And one of them just lost his wife of half a century, been married for nearly 50 years. And he is raw, this feeling. Everyone in this room suffered a loss. You know that. Rawness, naked and burning like a stick of incense. So real and intense. In the midst of his suffering and his tears, he said, "There's something so beautiful about it." Both hands. At Noah's memorial, there was nothing we could do to change the facts that he's gone. The man yesterday could not change his wife. Nearly could not, and he cannot solve the grief of the universe. But we can take for 1 hour together with Noah's co-workers, and we took care of each other. We made sure everyone knew they're not alone with this grief. This is restaurant, a little garden outside that Rain takes care of. Became place, field of presence. Everybody fully present with their own suffering, with each other's suffering of the world. And we were tending to it right then, making rice and feeding each other. And that is the water we have to carry with the world. That's how we reduce the suffering. Here, here, through it. So I want to thank you for being part of my world, and Jacoji's world, the world that the Ohlone people tended to. And thank you for helping me in my practice, expanding your practice, somehow include the whole world, tending to the fields, feeding. Your turn. This is when, for those of you who haven't been here before, you can observation. Maybe I'll start with hi Seisho, hi Andy, hi Jonan. Hi. Oh.
I just wanted to thank you for reminding us not to worry about the size of our bucket, that any size bucket of water, I think we have this tendency to think we have to do something really big. And in fact, it could be a very small offering. So.
Anyone here? No, they have. It would have been nice to see his face at the altar. Funny, it was days later that I remember. And actually, I remembered Noah because my grandfather's middle name was Noah. And I remembered saying to him, that was my grandfather's middle name. Mhm. Mm. If you couldn't hear online, Rain was saying um, both personal and the cultural kind of question with the koan. How do we actually take care of old age, sickness, and death? It's not only expensive, but it's exhausting. And how do we do this collectively? How do we take care? We don't really have a system in our country that takes care of people as they age. Falls on kids. There are no kids, friends, and it just is very difficult. I too dealt with this. Everyone will deal with it. Lucky enough, belong to be taken care of. Rain also pointed out the number of people on our, right now they're mostly in the Kaisando. We have just Angie on our altar. Everyone else on the altar. A lot of people, she recognizes their names. We put people's names on the altar when we make an offering for them. If there's someone in your life, anybody here that you want us to remember for you, take a moment, make an offering for their well-being. We will do that. Lots of people. Mm. What's your name? Steve. Steve asked, his wife, Steve asked, is grief something other, something more just sorrow? Is it an opportunity? Well, you're not going to be surprised with my answer. It's also an opportunity. And I think you know this instinctively. That's why you're asking. And for me, My husband died going on 3 years, and it was a huge up. I was just like yesterday. He said, so much beauty. It's for me, what I noticed is this: grief, love. They're not separable. Nothing separable. Almost the depth of my grieving was a mirror for the depth, breadth, the love. And it wasn't just for one person, it's for the whole world. This kind of vast interconnection arose with grief. It also arose with birth of my sons, that same vast, endless connection. And it's sad and beautiful. Both. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what the opportunity is for you. It's just my little tiny experience. I'm sorry. Anyone else? Yes. You. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then Bennett, you can hear Bennett. You. So Bennett was speaking about He's just returned from exchange program in Cuba, where there's quite a lot of suffering, you know, variety of reasons. It's very, it's life-changing. Things of his awareness that his contemporaries, his friends there, have experienced and will continue to experience kind of scarcity that he will never really experience. He can come back. He can come back. This life of tremendous luxury relative to what his friends are experiencing. And how can he navigate this sense of knowing that's happening, knowing it in his body now, the experience, face to face. How's he supposed to deal with this suffering? And go on with his life, which he feels the call to go on with his life here. How do you do that? And it's really that koan. What do you call the world? What do you call the world? It's what's right in front of you, what you have agency over, what you can do with this life of yours. You know what? You're doing something with this life of yours. You did something by bearing witness too, by letting it in, by letting it affect you, by not getting hard and mean-spirited, caring. This is like great work of one's life, right? To be able to be vulnerable to what's really happening and then do your part. I don't know what your part's going to be, but I see what it's been. Bow to you. It's something. You're a young person. You already have witnessed this and been willing to be engaged, but to be willing to bring it back, share it with us. You'll do something. You know, you are right now. Great faith in you. Room for one more if you've got some. Please speak up because I'm getting old. Mm. 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 What is your name again? She is speaking something she's read about and is now become informed about Chinese immigrant women who are being drugged, right? And organized. Those Chinese women, and that it has really destabilized her sense of safety here in the U.S. She was born in China. Destabilized her sense of safety, and also destabilized her sense of safety for other women. How to deal with it. She's lost her sense of safety. It's very stressing. I noticed anger. I hate to feel anger. It's part of how we decide to act sometimes. Not from anger, but to go through anger. Felt that rise up really powerfully. This is the world. We now have seen. We've seen this world. This question about safety is very profound, really important for all of us to think about safety, not necessarily in this particular vein. What is safety? I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, not as a solution, how, where do you find safety? How do you take care of the one who does not feel safe in the moment? You do have this sitting practice with a lot of time in practice, or maybe even just a little time. It depends on the person and the time of life. There is this deep sense of okayness, of a safety, even in the midst of what's happening. I think it's really, really important for you to take care of you. Do whatever you need to do. Kick ass. Excuse my language. To feel really as powerful as you can. You're right. Take yourself. You'll be helping everyone. But you try. And you see what's next. Yourself. It's really the best you can do. Take care of yourself, and then you'll see what you might want to talk to somebody, a group of people to talk to. If you did, you know what? You're not alone. Now we're all sharing. We'll all watch out, right? We'll all take care of her. Everyone else, we will not turn away. Anybody online, if you want to speak. Okay.